What's up, everybody? We are here. Welcome back to another episode of the Good Life Visual Audio Podcast. I got Kobi here in the building. Say what's up, Kobi.
What up, though?
And as always, I'm Chris. Guys, we are diving into how to design your life again with extraordinary health and wealth. Find us everywhere you're listening and watching, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. Leave us some reviews, leave us some good stuff. Because as always, we got another good one for you today. How's life, Kobi?
Life is good, man. Life is good. Sun is shining real nice. Gets a little cloudy in the mornings here and that stuff, but we will make our way through for the sunshine in the middle of the day. So life is good. Life is good. Business is good. Yeah, man. How about you?
Life is good on this side. Also, good weather. It has rained a bit, but again, rain is a good thing. It makes us adapt to life. Sometimes we need the clouds, sometimes we need the sun. Being able to thrive in both. So that's
Uh,
good.
I'm with it here, supporting your theory of four seasons makes the
Four
kids
seasons.
tough.
Listen,
Right,
four
yeah.
seasons, guys. Listen, this thesis is going to come out at some point or another. You're going to see it published in some books that a child raised in a place with four seasons more adaptable to life. They can adapt better to life. That's really it. That's the way it goes.
All right, all right. Hey, I
So,
don't. I think you got something there, but I also think you can do it. The kid can be well adapted otherwise too if they got a solid home structure going on.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's always tough when it's November and you feel like you can do anything you want. You don't understand what it's like to be like, hey, there's 6 inches of snow. There's 12 inches of snow outside. There's a foot of snow. You can't go anywhere. School's closed. You got to play with these Lincoln logs in your house.
Oh my
Do
god.
kids still play with Lincoln logs? Is that a
No,
thing?
I don't think I played with Lincoln Logs. I did actually have some Lincoln Logs when I first moved to the U.S. and I didn't know what to do with them. Some people got me some Legos and Lincoln Logs. I'm like, what is this? See, I
Yep.
grew up in a place without four seasons, or at least until we moved. And I was always outside. I turned out fine.
Mm. Yeah, but you spent some time in the snow. Don't
Yeah,
act
and that
like
was
you didn't.
that was, that was very unfortunate.
No, it wasn't. It was character building. Again, we don't have to go there, but it was character building.
Fair enough.
Anyway,
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, boss.
anyway.
What are we talking about today?
Today, extension of some of the stuff we talked about last episode. We kind of made this mention of the middle class. And so we're like, let's expand a little bit on this conversation around the middle class and if there really is a middle class or what will come of the middle class and how this is going to impact your life or how this is going to impact, our children's lives. Again, when we're in the process of designing the life that we don't need a break from, right? Designing the life that we actually want, we have to start to take into account some of the things that are happening in society or that are will take us away from that life, or right, some of the things we're seeing that are not allowing us to get to that place. And this word, middle class, and kind of this identity, it's an identity, right? People have like, at least I'm in the middle class. Well, we just want to kind of talk a little bit about it because I don't know if it's the identity to have, if it's even a thing. Is the middle class a thing? That's the initial question. I'll throw it to you, Kabi. Do you think the middle class is a thing? We'll get into the definition and I'll pull it up. But do you think the middle class is a thing?
I know we're gonna get into the definition, but I think to answer that question, you got to know what are we asking. Is I think on an economic categorization for maybe our taxes or I don't know the census or is that what they call the census that they do?
Census, yeah.
All right, to kind of rank folks. But that's that category, and then there's like people who kind of identify beyond just the W-2, right? They identify themselves as, we're not poor, we're not on the wrong side of the tracks, but we're also not the rich of the rich. So we've got good middle class values. We're a good Christian going Bible middle class, and maybe it's not all of those things, but middle class family. That's what we are. So there's like a value, moral component to it. There's a economic component to it. There's a kind of it really is an identity. But I will say this: like anything that we put into boxes, very rigid boxes, I believe there can never be enough boxes, because as we dive into the definition here, I'm sure we'll see that. If I may use a very touchy subject as race, for example, right? There's a few boxes that we put people in on the census. For example, you got to check a box. I was always, I always played some games on those boxes and see if it really mattered. But you got to check a box. But truly, if you travel around the globe, all the different characteristics that we attribute to different boxes can actually be found in other boxes. So really, it's not just, at what point do you all of a sudden go from white to the next box, or whatever the next box is, or whatever the next box is, right? At what point do you transition? Is there a sign that says you are now in Oklahoma? Like, you know what I mean? Is there a road sign there? And I think my point is, I think it's the same thing for middle class. Like, is there a road sign? Is, oh, my friend, do you get a letter in the mail that says, hey, you're officially in the middle class?
Middle class.
Right? So I don't know. I think it's a range, right? If we really look, let's pick skin color, for example, for the race example. If we travel across the world, what we're really seeing is gradual change from the lightest of the light to the darkest of the dark, and not all of them have fit cleanly into boxes. So my answer is yes, but no.
And some more ambiguity from Kobi.
Come on, man. I'm trying to give the truth.
Listen, it is a range. You said the word range, and that's kind of part of the definition I was going to pull up. When you kind of look at this is U.S. News talking about what is middle class income, right? So if we just took income, what is middle class income? And it's funny because it says it defines middle class Americans as those whose annual household income is 2/3 to double the national median. So without knowing what that is, it basically says it ranges from 52,000 to 156,000. But that's just middle class of the middle class, right?
Yeah. It's a massive range.
It is.
100,000 almost more.
It is. And if you want to know something even crazier about, and this is kind of what will go into a little bit more of our talk, is if you really look at how they range what it means to go to the next level after middle class, it's rich, right? So technically, and this is where the numbers are funny, it says to go from poor or near poor, right? So poverty level, it's under $32,000 a year, household income. If you're under $32,000 a year, you're at poverty level. But then they have this middle class section, which happens to be broken down into 3 separate parts of middle class. There's the lower middle class, the middle class, and the upper middle class. But all of these things are middle class, just understand. So lower middle class is from 32,000 to 54,000. Middle class is from 54 to 106. Upper middle class is from 106 to 374. So literally anybody that's rich would be over $374,000 in income per year. But it also just gives the range of what middle class is. Lower to upper middle class, it's still middle class, 32,000 to 374,000. That's the range of what would make someone middle class. So you could be lower middle class making $40,000 a year, and you're still technically in the middle class. You might feel like you're poor or poverty level, but technically by Pew and whoever does this research, they say that's middle class. But it's also middle class if you make $300,000 a year. You're also in the middle class. You're not rich. You're still just the upper side of middle class. This is why the whole thing seems like big sham. This thing is not real. Like, how do you make that large of a jump and still consider yourself middle class? Because clearly, somebody that's making $40,000 a year does not feel the same as someone making $300,000 a year, nor do they have the same opportunities or outlooks or those types of things. So that's a huge range, isn't it?
Huge range, huge range. And I think again we come back to the lack of clarity in the definition. Like what are we really talking about? Because as you were saying that huge range, again, what is it? 40, 30,000, 30
For
something thousand?
33 puts you at the bottom of the lower middle class. 33,000.
So if we're gonna say 33,000 to literally like 300 plus $1,000, it's still middle range. That means we've got an issue with the definition of what middle class actually is. And so we might have to come up with our own definition here for the purposes of this discussion, because that doesn't make any sense. And in coming up with the definition, we've got to clearly consider, where do you live, right?
Mm.
Because if you live, and I know the hesitation you felt there is, I was going to say, if you live with 40,000 in San Francisco, you do not live with 40,000 in San Francisco.
Oh, absolutely
That's not a
not.
thing.
You're
That's
not
not a
even.
thing.
I don't know if you'd get shelter under a bridge for 40 grand.
10,000. No, 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 no. You won't, because you have too much money to be helped by the state, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So it's really interesting. I believe I saw an article not long ago. You guys can double check me on this, where we're saying like if you're making over like 120,000 or 130,000, you're still considered in a range of poverty in San Francisco. Have you seen something like that or no?
I did. It's so funny. I just gave that stat to somebody I was talking to. I think it's right around about $140,000 a year for a family of four. If a family of four in Northern California or Bay Area, whatever it is, right, is making that amount, it's still technically poverty level. You can still actually get government assistance. Family of four, $140,000 a year in California, in Northern California.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's
That's
nuts.
insane. And so here's another category, that's another characteristics I think we have to consider, which is, where do you live? How many mouths are eaten off of that plate? Right? Because that changes everything. How many people need to be fed off of that plate, for that income that comes in? If you've got two people making 300,000 versus two people making 30,000, that's a big difference.
That's right.
That's a big difference.
That's right.
Or sorry, two people making 300 versus, uh, 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 let's say, a family of six making 300. That's very different.
That's right. Greg, thanks for chiming in there. He said California takes $200,000 or more to survive. We understand that. Absolutely, 1,000% right.
I
Right.
just want to thank you, Greg, for the contribution there. Greg, I'd love to know what the letter CLTC stand for. I'm always curious.
Long-term care. So he actually educated this on the, like, before Greg had jumped on, and I think I had asked the same question, and it's the
Ah,
certified long-term care. I think that's what it is. You correct if
got it.
we're wrong, Greg, but I remember. I got a good memory, Greg.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that. I always like to know what people are up to and what those letters mean. Um, hey, as you guys see, we do this show live. So if you want to hop on LinkedIn, Chris Mouzon, YouTube, I believe it's Kobi Asare, Facebook, The Good
The good
Life,
life.
hop in. We would love to get your contribution to the show, because it makes it that much more rich, if you will. So going back to
Rich.
yeah, rich. Going back to what Greg was saying there, notice, I just want to highlight that he said it takes 200,000 plus to survive, not thrive, to survive, right? In California. And he's counting the state of California. I would say it's very different when you look at the Bay Area, very different when you look at San Francisco. And it's also different when you look at LA, San Diego, etc. So it clearly, where you are, how large the family is, and who has to eat off of that, makes a pretty significant difference in whether you're considered middle class or not middle class. That's that's really it. I actually think the definition is like, are you are you poor or rich? And if you're neither, that's what we're calling middle class.
That's it. I think that is the definition. Like, I think we got to clip that up, Ash, because that is the definition. I think we got to say, and that's part of what we were talking about last week, was like, there's only going to be the rich and the poor. Do you call yourself rich? Do you call yourself poor? If not, right, if you can't call yourself either, then you're in the middle class. But that's, again, there's probably some people that are making $60,000 a year somewhere that will call themselves poor, right? And so I think it might be this fluid type of definition, right? Like, fluid definition of what you think it is. In this article, it says there are some other things that are an impact on where you sit in this economic system. It says, in this economic class system, it says you can look at things like income, education, marital status, location, family history, gut instinct. And,
I like that one.
yeah,
I like that one.
My gut just tells me I'm not poor. Right? Like, these are all the factors, and there's so much that's factored in to this middle class, kind of, again, identity that we want to take time to just break some of this stuff down. Think of education, how just because you have a degree of higher education, some secondary degrees or whatever the case is, you might look at yourself like middle class, even if your income doesn't reflect it, right? There's plenty of people in academia that don't make good money, right? They might feel like they're under that poverty level, but they have a master's in some, right, subject that's going to allow them to further their career in academia, which potentially could bring the money, right? But maybe they just find themselves being middle class because of their education, and not necessarily because of their income, just because of their network or the people that they're around through the education. So that's an interesting one. The marital status one is another one that's interesting, just because, like, if you just married, you're like, no, I'm in the middle class because I'm married and I have a house. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could just say something like that and it puts you in the middle class, right? Like, it has nothing to do with, again, location, income, any of those things. It's literally just, I'm married and we live in a house. Like,
we were talking about middle classes, income, W-2, what you actually bring in. Like you just said, education, but it's also a status, right? It's also a status thing. Going back to the education piece, to break that down and to break up and then to connect it back to status, the education thing, do you think it comes down to the fact that you have a degree, or more so your ability to your potential ability to earn money based on your degree, right? Like, hey, don't make that much money, but because I have this degree, I can potentially make more money in the future.
Yeah, I
Is
think
it something like that?
I think it has more to do with that. I think it has more to do with your earning potential, but there's also probably something psychologically just about how they've positioned degrees, right? Higher education in our society that says, if I have this, I'm better off.
Yeah. Status. If I have this, I'm better than those that don't. Yeah.
And I think, and again, it's probably a little bit of both on that side, but like, I would probably lean heavily towards the status part more so than the other side of, like, their earning potential, even though they kind of innately know they could make more. I think it's really just that idea of, like, I have a degree in this field, which makes me not poor. A college graduate could never be poverty level, right? Like,
Yeah. And I think that status, kind of is what is really sold to. I know that's what was really sold to me as a high school, student looking for colleges, right? You're looking for status. You're not really looking because theoretically speaking, a degree is better than no degree, and then a degree from a particular place is worth a certain amount of cachet, a certain amount of clout, as the kids would say. All right. So if you got a no degree, you're nobody, right? But if you got a degree from community college, oh, what? That's weird. If you got a degree from a state school, okay, I guess that's better. If you got a degree from a private school, maybe that's better. And if you got a degree from an Ivy League school, oh yeah, that's much better. Or a school that has a big brand. All right.
That's very true. And even, I mean, honestly, and we talked about this too a bit, even if we did talk colleges and we kind of went down this path, the middle class of colleges is going to get squeezed out too.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
just like you said, that degree from some liberal arts college, right? And it's some school in the middle of nowhere, but still gives you that degree. Well, that's not going to be worth as much long term because those colleges aren't even going to be in business long term
Yeah.
because of their right the expenses, the way that this whole thing is shaping up. By the way, at the time of dropping this, Biden just announced that little program to for student loan borrowers. I don't know if you saw that, but he's
No, I
forgiven
didn't. I didn't.
forgive
You got we
for,
got a little blurb on it or something?
yeah, forgiven $10,000, $10,000 for everybody that makes under 125,000 a year, 250 like yeah, if you file single or jointly like 250 or something like that. So definitely gonna people are gonna start getting some, and I don't have all the details just yet. But people are gonna start getting some of those uh, student loan balances decreased a little bit, and some people are excited about it. Some people aren't. At the end of the day, it just goes to show you that there's so much in this college student loan side of things that needs to be shaken out, right? Like top 10% of schools might be around, community colleges might be around, the middle might not be around for some time or after some time. Obviously, they're already now starting to forgive some of these student loans. So, like, there's a lot of stuff happening with this higher education field.
Yeah, going back to my experience with higher education, man, I realize now how little I knew and how unprepared I was for the financial aspect of college, right? Taking care of what the costs would be. Everybody pushes students to make sure you go to college and finish your degree and etc. But nobody talks about how you're going to pay for it. And then nobody talks about what you're going to do to make sure you get a return on investment after you've taken on that big loan, right? Or big loans, right? I was here at 18, 19, 20, signed in promissory notes. I had no idea what I was signing. I had no idea what I was doing. It was just a matter of, oh, this is what I got to do to take my classes next fall. All right, fine. Here you go. Here's the signature. Make sure you frame that, right? Because at that time, you feel like everything's gonna work out. This is what everybody does.
Right.
And I think that's a huge problem there in talking about because I know a lot of students out there, myself included, who were taking on majors and degrees where, if we're just going to be flat out honest, the return on investment is very, very bad. It's
Yeah.
not good
Yeah.
at all. All right. So you come out of this and you might be able to, and I also know to counter that, a lot of parents out there who are trying to buy status through their kids going to particular schools, right? Every parent wants their kid to go to Harvard, right? Because that elevates their status when they've got that Harvard sticker in the back of the car, right? Oh, what? Jim,
Middle class.
Harvard,
Middle class.
Harvard.
Middle class though. Like that's so funny. That I think that's a middle class thing. I don't think
I
that
agree.
wealth I don't think that like and this is a super blanket statement, but I don't think that rich people as much would hang their hat on the fact that their child has to do a certain thing, go to a certain college for that status. Now, I'm sure there are some that just keep family legacy or tradition, right? You don't if you donate to the school, by golly, everybody's going to this school, right? Like if we have a building here, you better go to that college or right, go to that university. So that happens probably at the top the top levels. But if you really think about it, who's really pushing their kids to go to college like full force? It's the middle class. It's that swing of people between 40, $34,000 a year and $300,000 a year that are saying, hey, we get our kid into this school, makes us look good, makes them look good, sets them up. But that all is also the illusion.
I think you have a point, but I will push back a little bit and say this. I do think that in that there may be more people that fall between that 30 and 300,000 plus, how that are pushing for that stuff because they're fighting for status. But I will say this too, there's certainly a good amount of people beyond that point who are also pushing for trying to buy status, right? We just had a couple stories out not too long ago about parents who were paying off kids to get into particular schools. Those aren't
Mm,
middle class. Those aren't middle
that's
class individuals, right? So if they
well
can get
played.
Sarah and Jamie and whoever to go to, even Daquan's, right, to go to
Yeah,
Stanford or Harvard, it means something. It
yeah,
really does mean something, man. And I think the people who realize it doesn't mean anything are probably the ones that realize or have the capability to open any door regardless of what school their child goes to. But a
right.
lot of them also know and believe, whether true or not, and I think there is some truth to it, that if you go to Stanford or Harvard and shake the right hands and kiss the right babies, actually, maybe you're not kissing babies in college, so don't do that. But if you go to Harvard or Stanford or Yale or whatnot, you get into certain communities,
Right.
right, which they want to either be a part of or continue to be a part of, and they don't care because they can pay for it.
That's
Right.
fair.
They've set aside money to pay for it. So the cost doesn't matter. We'll pay for the status as long as I keep saying Jimmy, but maybe it's another kid. Right? As long as Jimmy can get in. All right. What do you think
That's
of that?
fair.
You disagree with that?
No, that's fair. I actually agree because I did a bunch. I wound up doing like a different podcast episode about that whole whatever the guy's name was, that scandal where Full House lady and all them, right, paid for their kids to go to get into these colleges, but they were just like getting into USC and getting into random schools. If it was more like just privilege and like laziness, like my daughter doesn't really know everything. Just pay to get her in the college, right? Like, but what is the point, right? Like the point was the status. You're right, right? The point is like, they got to go to USC because they're not going to go anywhere else, and I got to have this name to say my child's smart enough
Yep.
to be able to get in. So yeah,
Yep.
I actually
Yep.
agree. Actually agree. Well played, sir. Making me switch my initial thesis there.
Girl, I'll tell you what, man. I don't think there are many humans out here who are above status, if you will, right? Or
Very true.
above trying to reach a particular status or crawl, whatever it is. They still want it. Maybe they don't care as much, but they still want it. But what was some of you said education, location, we talked about a little bit. And what was the other point? Other characteristics?
Education, marital status, location, family history, and then the good old gut instinct.
Yeah, I don't know what they mean by the gut instinct, man, but I wanna perhaps attribute that to if you want to raise your status in terms of middle into the middle class or above, you want to definitely care for your gut health. So
Mm.
we will say that real quick. But in terms of marital status, is that kind of like it's better to be in a two-income household situation, or what do you think?
Yeah, probably. It doesn't give any specific, definitions to any of these kind of categories, but I would think that that's really what it means. It's like once you get married, that puts you in a different social category. And I don't, and the tide's changing on that too. People are happy being single and happy kind of living their life, doing the co-parenting thing or whatever people do these days. But like the fact that when people do say that you're married or they say that they're married, I think it puts you in a place of like, step above a little bit more responsibility, like a little bit more commitment. There's something there, probably goes towards status, but I definitely think there's something there. Being married versus not married, that married is going to kind of put you a notch up on that economic pole.
Yeah.
What do,
Yeah.
what do you think?
That's an interesting point, man. And again, to highlight status, this might just be about status at the end of the day. But I look at so many different things or junctions or critical milestones that we hit in life that require, either a really really high income from somebody, or two people in the house. Even if one person is making a lot of money, um the other person to kind of run life, right? Because
Mhm.
if you it's almost like you got to pick and choose, right? You can't go out and be in a situation where you're making a lot of money and still have your house kind of intact. um I always think about LeBron and his wife, um for this, not Gloria James, but Gloria James
Yeah,
is his mother, right?
yeah, but I don't know his wife's name, honestly.
Okay, cool. Shout out to the Jameses. But to the point where it's like, he could probably hire people to do what he does, but for him to be like seen as this family man, etc., like, hey, his wife is basically 50, like running that whole
Yeah,
entire side of the family, right? The
yeah,
whole entire side of the equation, period. Right.
absolutely.
So, and then you look at, I want to, I don't know the stats on this off the top of my head, but you look at, at some point, at one point in time, they say that a carpenter, all right, a husband who was a carpenter, or a female, but typically it was a husband who was a carpenter, could take care of a four people family, right? Send them, give them everything they need, care for everybody, and then the wife could choose to stay at home. There was no need for her to go to work, because that carpenter was making enough money to care for everybody. At some point in time, that switched. I don't know if you know when that was or not, but that switched to a point where now it was required
Mhm.
for you to maintain that status, right? In the middle class, upper middle class, not yet rich, but you upper middle class, right? For you to
Mhm.
maintain that status, now both people got to go to work,
Mm.
which doesn't make sense to me, because when you look at that now, looking at, well, if you have kids, you got to, there's childcare involved, right? And I look at some of the costs, particularly out here in the West Coast, of childcare and
Mhm.
schooling.
Mhm.
I'm like, you're basically canceling out one person's income.
Yeah, just in childcare and schooling, literally.
Uh,
Like, yeah, I don't know when that switch, bro. Like, honestly, I don't know when that switch, but is that a combination of, some people want to call it inflation, some just, cost of goods going up over time? Is it that income hasn't been on pace with the cost of things going up? Income has kind of stayed relatively stagnant. Uh, is that by design?
I think it's a few things. I think it is, in a way, by design, of some of the things that we talk about quite often. For example, and I talk about the different milestones. I think the increasing cost of college, right, puts people in debt, so they're handcuffed for a longer period of time, and then their kids go to college, and then they, by the time they reach there, they're handcuffed for a longer period of time, because now it's falling on mom and dad. I also think it's because when you look at, for example, inflation over time, not only is the cost of education going up, but the cost of other things that have been sold to us going up. So you have college, cost of college, you have inflation, literally our money buying less, and then you have things like the cost of childbirth, right, significantly skyrocketing. And when you start to look at that, you realize that certain things are being pushed that maybe don't need to be pushed, that increase the cost of something like childbirth, the cost of like cars, and people getting into handcuffs into purchasing cars through loans that then put you into handcuffs, right? Then you have things like the American dream of home ownership being sold, right? Which then gets people into more handcuffs. And then you have things like living. Not just are you getting any car, but you're getting, the BMW, because that's a status symbol, right? You're moving into the suburbs because that's a status symbol. So it's all of these different status symbols that, in a way, if you're able to kind of navigate around it a bit, you might be able to get yourself to a place where your money is actually working for you rather than you working for your money to go pay off these handcuffs.
Mm.
But none of that is sold to us that way. It's sold to us like you should have these things. If you want to signal that you are in the middle class or doing well, then why don't you have these things? And even if you can't afford them, hey, listen, you can borrow to have them, right? You can borrow to have them. And that and I think that's huge, man, because I think those are things that along with others, right? Healthcare, right? Along
Mm.
with other things that are systematically locking people in to a lifestyle that is, I don't know, man. It's not looking great. It's
Yeah,
not looking great.
yeah. I think, man, we're touching on, and that was spot on, bro. Like, honestly, that's spot on for like what keeps people in handcuffs. You ever heard the saying, the golden handcuffs when it comes to income, like working? Golden handcuffs are people that have very cushy jobs that are in the upper middle class potentially, right? Or just the regular middle class, who knows? But that now their lifestyle, right, has crept up. And so that job, it's kind of like it's keeping them there because it pays for their lifestyle, but it also sucks away all of their time, and they don't have time to enjoy or go do things or right enjoy the money. But yet the job is so easy, it's kind of like on autopilot for them, yet it's taking away from the other sides of life. So that's the golden handcuffs when it comes to income side of things,
Yeah,
right?
real quick with that. I wouldn't say the job is easy. I would say the job is now it's non-negotiable. It
Mm,
may not be easy because if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, typically those are the golden handcuff type of jobs.
true.
I wouldn't say it's easy. I would say that you can't make that much money anywhere else to pay for that lifestyle that you have.
Sure. And that's on the higher end because you can come down that list. And I know people that have the golden handcuffs and they're in a pharmaceutical sales position, or they're in like a right some other random sales job or something like that, where it's just like, damn, I just know this too well and I only have to do it for 6 hours out of the week and da da
I
da.
see what you're
You
saying.
know what I mean? Like, so there's both sides to that. It's the ones that you can't do anything else because nothing else is going to pay your lifestyle the way that this does, even though there's probably some entrepreneurial endeavors. But again, most people don't jump out and go do that. Or just the ones that like you make $112,000 a year and it's like autopilot for you, but your lifestyle requires $112,000 a year to come in
Yeah.
for you to like continue to drive your BMW or have your house. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's just there's levels to it. I believe there's a scale.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that being said, like all of these handcuffs, whether it's on how the money comes in, our jobs, what we do for work, or like you mentioned, all of the liabilities, all of the house, the car, the all the things that we're supposed to have, it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion, right? Again, who made these rules that the house is the American dream? Like
The bank.
who exactly, that's exactly the answer. I
The
just think
bank.
our listeners don't understand that all the time. That like it was not the actual American dream for you to just own a home. It was the bank's American dream so that they could constantly have your money.
Well, I'll say this: if I kind of, I think we need to unpack this a little bit if we're going to talk about the middle class, because I think this is one of the, if we would list them, this is one of three, maybe four things that keeps people within this cage of what we call a middle class, which um, at the end of this, I may argue doesn't even really exist, right?
Mm.
It's a suspended effect. I would say cost of education, um, things like a car, like a vehicle. I see a lot of people spend a lot of money on vehicles, which makes no sense to me.
Bro, let me just
Uh,
sidebar that real quick. The amount of people paying more than $500 a month for a car payment is way more people than you think. And that's just crazy. It doesn't matter what your income is. paying more than $500 a month for a car note is a lot. But go ahead, we digress.
Yeah, makes no sense, man. Makes no sense. And it took me, yeah, I learned an expensive lesson on that when I got out of college. So I will never again in my life. But yeah, cost of education, because right out of the gate, right? If we track the life right out of the gate, high school, college, bam. Now, if you are not in that top percentage and you're in the middle class, that means your parents probably have to borrow or you have to borrow to keep up with the increasing cost of education, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people are doing that without getting a degree that's going to return their investment on that education. And I think it's almost intentionally sold to students in a very kind of predatory way, right?
Mhm.
So that's number one. Then you get out of college, and maybe at that point you purchase a car because you landed a job, you purchase some sort of car on a car note, which is over $500, like insane.
Mhm.
Then out of that, you might I think another one would be um the cost of children, the cost of just childbirth, children in general is going out insane. And not saying you shouldn't have kids or anything. I'm just saying it's like it's increasingly expensive every single year, and you have to get them into that school, right? You have to get them into that hobby or that whatever. It just keeps going up.
Mhm.
I feel like parents are like shamed into these things almost, right?
Thousand.
So that's number three. Number four, then somewhere around there, either before that, you pick up the house. All right. So there's four, probably more, but four things that seems like it's automatic. Bam, 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 bam. Right? Where it seems like it's automatic.
Yeah, it's so funny because as you name them, like outside of like the college and me just going and right, that was the path. The other three, like try to being in the financial space, I've just learned to stay away from as long as possible, right? Like the first few cars that me and my wife got, we got them from an auction, right? We just kind of paid for them. They weren't, you know, brand new cars. They weren't even 2 years old. They're probably like 3, 4 year old cars got from an auction, right? Like just don't want a car note. It doesn't make sense to pay all that money, right? The child thing, the education thing for children. We're trying to keep our daughter out of the traditional education system in general. I'll put that on record consistently to say like we just we we don't want her being in that system necessarily, but still it comes with so much other expense, right? Like to now have tutors or to homeschool or to create the activities and buy the activities and do the other extracurricular things. It's still a bunch of money, but the traditional schooling thing probably wouldn't be it. And then that house, right? Like, granted, we have one, but like, uh, man, we were renters for a very long time, and I believe in it more than anything. It just happened to be our circumstance right now, but the renting side is right. I think it's good for people as much as people want to go and buy that home and like solidify it. It's such handcuffs to their financial life. But again, status, back to this word, right? Like when you get to say, "Oh, I'm a homeowner," apparently you feel better about your life.
Oh,
Apparently,
absolutely.
apparently you just
Absolutely.
you just
People
feel
literally
better.
congratulate you.
Yeah,
People congratulate. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Right?
yeah.
This is a rule that just I honestly just kind of came I felt this for a long time, but just came to mind. This is a rule, and I should go and want to clip this, right? This is a rule of life in general. When you have the general middle class, right, clapping for you when you do things, you should double think whether or not you're doing the right thing, right? Oh my gosh, you got into such a great college. Oh my gosh, you're gonna buy a car. Oh my gosh, you just got a new house. Oh my gosh, you just had your first child. Like I feel like all of those things, you should just pause for a second and make sure that you're really doing what you want to do and you have it well thought out. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying when those things happen, every single time in my life, I'm like, may have fucked up. every single time, right? For real. I got a car out of college. Oh my God, what a nice car you got. Why? That's so great. Da, da, da. Car note, car note, car note. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ended up $8,000 underwater. How did
Mm,
that happen? Right? It just flew by me, right? Went to college. College out here costing, I forget what it costs, but one of the most expensive colleges out here in a totally different state with no support, anything like that. Now, granted, I was able to figure it out debt free, but man, that thing wrung me out, right?
absolutely.
So it's like all of these different things. Even for like things like a wedding, right? Spending an insane amount of money on a wedding, right? It's like, if you don't have it, don't do it. Don't do it.
Even listen, I'll take it one step further. Even getting a job,
Mm,
even getting a job, right? When everyone just congratulates you for the entry level, like I see this type of stuff on Facebook, and it's to each his own, right? No judgment in this space, but like it's just always interesting to me, like when we applaud the child for getting a job, like the 16-year-old, 17-year-old, like, look at Susie, she's got a job, and everyone's like, yeah, she's got a job. It's like, she works at McDonald's, like she works at Chick-fil-A. Like, why are we applauding this? Like, is this something that should be applauded because they got an entry level
great work
position?
ethic. Great
Yeah.
work ethic,
Like
right?
what? What
But
are we?
God forbid, Susie says, "Hey, listen, Mom, I'm gonna go start a business." Da 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 da. Yeah, Susie, do you have a plan for your life?
That's right.
Right,
That's
bro?
right.
This.
I'm gonna go. I've made a video that was talking about like where I think we should steer our children. Right, just a little parenting opinion on my part. Just saying like, hey, if we're gonna like set our kids up, how we were always saying go to school and get good grades and all that good stuff. But like, if we're gonna set them up for like the future, any kids that are under the age of 12 right now, under the age of 13, something in STEM, right? Some type of technology, being able to code, even just understanding some of the technical aspects of this stuff, computers, metaverse, all that type of stuff, right? There's got to be some technical aspects that they're learning, or it's going to be artistry, like just the thing that robots can't take over, the things that are innate to us humans, the music, the poetry, the writing, those types of things in art. I think those are the two directions that we should start steering kids, because everything else is going to get commoditized. It's going to get right taken over by machines or robots or whatever the case is. So like it should go those directions. And even then, having these conversations about like the arts. A kid wants to, is 11 and wants to be a YouTuber, but their parents already kind of poo poo on it and like are like, well, what else can we do? Right? Like, no, set them up a channel and like help them get to that place, because that's actually something that will help them, right? If they're in arts, it's going to help them get their artistry out a lot sooner. But we don't see those types of lanes for our kids. And I think we just have to have a difference of perspective, right? We got to really change how we're thinking about what the future is going to hold and how we equip our children for this manner.
I totally agree, man. I totally agree. And I think it's hard for parents to break away from ideology that maybe they had pushed onto them by their parents and people that they knew. And so it's difficult. I get it. I understand. Um, so that's why we do stuff like this to put out the good life and try to, bring people's minds to this and start thinking about this a little differently, right? I'm at a stage now where I'm seeing so many of my peers get an MBA.
Hmm.
Like
It's just the
I,
next logical step, right? It's just,
every time I hopped onto LinkedIn, and you would think there was only 3 schools offering MBAs, literally 3 schools. Like it's literally 3 schools offering MBAs. Like it's insane. Um, oh, I just spent 7 years at Google, and now I'm going to go get my MBA, and like 256 likes, congratulations, and oh my god, that's so great, right?
mhm.
Double check, double check, double check, right? again, not,
Too many people are applauding for you. You might be
yeah,
going down the wrong path.
might be going down the wrong path. Not for certain, but it's a
Right.
litmos test. It's a
Absolutely.
litmus test. You know, you
Absolutely.
want, it's like a pregnancy test. You might need a second one to confirm, but that's not good sign. That's not good, right? Or God forbid, a COVID test, right? Right? It
Oh
might
God.
not be good. Shout out Fauci's out here retiring after he set the whole world on fire.
I heard.
See you, Fauci.
I heard. And I heard
Enjoy,
that
enjoy your package into retirement. You devil. I'm just kidding. Ash, feel free to edit that out.
we're live, sir. We're
Yeah, oh,
live.
we're alive. Okay, great. That's how I feel.
It is what it is. But guys, we'll wrap up today's episode. We really just wanted to bring this to you to really, make you aware. Is the middle class an illusion? Are these metrics to make you middle class? Is that an illusion? Is this something that we should still be sticking to? Or is it you're rich, you're poor, you have, you don't have, you want to go here, you want to be in this side, right? Like what really creating this identity for yourself instead of kind of what society wants it to look like, I think is really the important message. And you figure, and again, going back to the thesis here, the good life, designing the life you don't need to break from, right? Really taking your life to the next level in all of the areas, health, wealth, your mindset, your relationships, all the things that will bring you the life that you're looking for. We have to first be aware of the things that are around us, these things that handcuff us, the middle class conversations, or the ideologies of the middle class. Some of the things that we talked about today about status, about whether college is really worth it for your child, or whether that house is really your dream. It might be the American dream, but is it your dream? All of these things go into whether or not you would consider yourself middle class, and if you even want to consider yourself middle class. I personally would think that we get rid of that term and just literally start to design the life that we want. If you're not where you want to be, then keep striving to that place. Whenever you get to that place, it doesn't matter about a label. It doesn't have to be rich, doesn't have to be poor, doesn't have to be middle class. Just get to the status, to the income that you want, to the lifestyle that you want, to the relationships that you want, and call your life your life.
That's right. That's right. And if you guys pay attention, at the beginning of this, we struggle to even define what middle class is because a lot of these terminologies are just little boxes that we try to fit people into. So I would encourage you, at least what I'm taking from this is I don't want to fit myself in a box. I want to go as far as my abilities and imagination and whatnot will take me. And for me, I think that means, and one thing I got from this conversation, man, is that we got to look at these different sort of like life markers, right? Life markers, whether it's education, whether it's marriage, whether it's house, whether it's children, whether it's a car, whether it's all of these different things. And I think those things can either lock you into the rat race, if you will. They can either lock you into the rat race, or they can actually help elevate you and ramp you up towards the lifestyle that you want to live. So for me, that's something I'm taking for this is just like look at those things strategically and look at what everybody's doing, all normal people are doing, middle class is doing, and not do those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do it or be more creative about how I'm approaching these things. And that means that I'll probably take a little bit of pushback, get some extra looks, get a little bit of gazing, right? Because when you're doing something different that's not normal, people get uncomfortable because it's like you're putting a mirror up to them and then they start thinking, whoa, did I do this right? Why aren't you following the normal protocol? Why aren't you falling in line, Johnson? Right. So I think it's important that we take a look at those things in the spirit of designing and creating a life. And guys, that's it for us today. If you
Greg,
guys
we love
go
you.
ahead, bro.
We love you too,
Oh,
Greg.
Greg is on here.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you checking into the show, and everybody
Hey.
else that's checking into the show. We appreciate you guys This is like episode like 82 or something, 83. I don't even know what we're on
Somewhere
right
in
now.
there. Somewhere in there.
But we're headed road to 100. Road to 100. It's about to get there. It's going to be amazing. So we appreciate people like yourself, Greg, for checking in and showing us some love, and everyone else that's listening and watching. We appreciate you as well.
Much appreciated, Greg. And everybody that's watching. That's episode 82 for us. Road to 100. We're getting there. And after 100 or at 100, we've got a crazy show coming up for you. Like, you know, elephants dancing, lions and tutu. It's gonna be crazy. And if you've got some folks that you believe will make an impact and bring some information, and bring some additional energy, information, and help enhance the message that we're trying to put out there, we'd love to have them. Tag them in us.
Right.
So
Right.
Love to see them.
That's right. That's right. So until next week, guys, we're going to sign off of The Good Life. As always, keep living the good life.
All right. Make sure you share this to somebody that would love to hear it. All press is good press. Until next time, keep living a good life. We out of here, baby. Peace.